In the year 2247, humanity had just begun to stretch its fragile roots into the vast unknown of space. Earth's resources were dwindling and survival depended on reaching beyond their home planet. Among the first colonies established was one, on a distant moon orbiting Proxima Centauri b, a barren but resource-rich world named Lyra 3. It wasn't long before humans discovered they weren't alone. The Valith dominated Lyra 3, standing at twice the height of an average human. These alien beings shimmered like living crystals under the dim light of Proxima Centauri. Their translucent skin pulsed faintly with colors that shifted depending on their emotions or thoughts, a language incomprehensible to outsiders. To the Valith, humans were little more than pests encroaching on sacred ground. They saw humanity as weak, chaotic, and unworthy of sharing even the smallest corner of their domain. For years, the humans tried to coexist peacefully. They built settlements far from the Valith cities, mined only in designated areas, and avoided direct confrontation. But peace came at a cost: humiliation. Every interaction with the Valith ended the same way: condescension. Humans were mocked for their fragility, dismissed as insignificant specks in the grand tapestry of existence. Even attempts to communicate diplomatically were met with disdainful laughter. One such attempt involved Dr. Elena Vega, a brilliant astrophysicist and linguist who led humanity's diplomatic initiative team. Her goal was simple yet monumental: prove that humans deserved respect by showing they could contribute something valuable to the galaxy. For months, she worked tirelessly to decode the Valith's glowing patterns, hoping to find common ground through understanding. But every time she presented her findings, the Valith dismissed her efforts without hesitation. Then came the day everything changed, or so it seemed. A young human engineer named Cale Armitage stumbled upon something extraordinary while repairing mining equipment near the edge of restricted Valith territory. Buried beneath layers of metallic rock was what appeared to be an ancient artifact, a smooth, black sphere etched with intricate symbols that glowed faintly when touched. When Cale brought it back to camp, excitement rippled through the colony. Could this be the key to unlocking the secrets of the Valith? Perhaps even earning their respect? Dr. Vega immediately took charge, studying the sphere alongside her team. Days turned into weeks as they deciphered its purpose. What they uncovered left them stunned. The sphere wasn't merely an object. It was alive, humming softly when activated. It emitted signals that resonated with both organic and technological systems, suggesting it served as some kind of universal translator, a bridge between species. This discovery felt like humanity's golden ticket, a chance to rewrite their narrative among the stars, but not everyone shared their optimism. Commander Elias Rourke, head of security for the colony, warned against rushing into anything reckless. "We don't know what we're dealing with," he said during a tense meeting. "If we hand this over to the Valith, they might see it as a threat instead of a gift." Despite his warnings, Dr. Vega decided to present the sphere to the Valith Leadership Council. She believed transparency would foster trust. Accompanied by Cale and a small delegation, she ventured into the heart of the Valith capital city, a sprawling expanse of towering spires made entirely of reflective crystal. The air shimmered with energy, and the ground vibrated faintly beneath their feet. When they finally stood before the council, Elena explained the significance of their discovery. She held up the sphere, letting its soft glow illuminate the chamber. Silence followed. Then, one of the council members, a towering figure whose crystalline form radiated deep indigo, stepped forward. His voice echoed like rolling thunder. As he spoke in broken human speech, "This belongs to us." He extended a claw-like hand toward the sphere. "You have trespassed where you do not belong." Elena hesitated, clutching the sphere tightly. "It's not yours to claim," she replied firmly. "It's a tool meant to connect, not divide." Her words sparked outrage. The council erupted. In flashes of angry red and orange hues, their bodies pulsating with fury. Before anyone could react, the Indigo Council member snatched the sphere from her grasp. In that instant, the artifact emitted a blinding flash of light, forcing the humans to shield their eyes. When the light faded, The sphere was gone, and so was Elena. Kale stared in disbelief, his heart pounding. "What did you do to her?" he demanded, stepping forward despite the overwhelming presence of the Valeth. The council ignored him, turning their backs as if dismissing the incident entirely. As the humans retreated from the city, confusion and fear settled over them. Where had Elena gone? And why had the sphere reacted so violently? Back at the colony, whispers of betrayal spread quickly. Some accused Elena of abandoning them willingly, believing she'd sought refuge with the Valeth out of desperation. Others argued she'd been taken against her will. Either way, the loss left a void no one knew how to fill. 6 years passed, and life on Lyra 3 grew increasingly strained. Supplies dwindled, tensions rose, and hope began to fade. Just when it seemed all was lost, a ship descended from the sky, an unfamiliar vessel bearing markings unlike any seen before. Its occupant stepped out onto the dusty surface, squinting. Against the harsh sunlight, it was Elena. She looked different now, older, wearier, but unmistakably human. Her arrival sent shockwaves through the colony. People gathered around her, shouting questions, demanding answers. But Elena silenced them all with 3 simple words: "I was wrong." And then, looking directly at Kale, she added, "Please, help me." The mystery of her disappearance and the truth about the sphere was about to unravel. But as the crowd parted to let her pass, one thing became clear. Whatever she had endured, it had changed her forever. And humanity's fragile foothold among the stars hung precariously in the balance. Elena. Vega's sudden reappearance sent shockwaves through the colony. For 6 long years, she had been presumed lost, or worse, abandoned by her own people, after vanishing under mysterious circumstances. Yet here she stood, alive but visibly changed. Her once pristine lab coat was replaced by a tattered garment woven from shimmering threads that seemed alien in origin. Her eyes carried shadows of experiences no human should endure, and her voice trembled as though every word cost her dearly. The crowd parted hesitantly, allowing her to step closer. Cale Armitage, now older and hardened by years of leadership, struggles, stared at her with a mix of disbelief and anger. He remembered the day she disappeared, the day their fragile hopes were shattered along with the glowing sphere. That artifact had promised so much, yet delivered nothing but chaos. Now, Elena's return raised more questions than answers. "I was wrong," she repeated softly, her gaze sweeping over the faces before her. "I thought I could bridge the gap between us and them. But I underestimated what it would take and who we truly are." Her words hung heavy in the air. No one moved. Finally, Commander Elias Rourke stepped forward, his gruff demeanor masking the turmoil within. "You've got some explaining to do, Vega. Where have you been? What happened to you? And why come back now?" Elena nodded slowly, bracing herself for what she knew would be a difficult story to tell. She gestured toward the makeshift command center, a cluster of prefab buildings, hastily assembled when the colony first arrived on Lyra 3. "Let me explain everything inside." As they gathered around a battered table littered with maps and schematics, Elena began her tale. After being taken by the Valeth Council, she hadn't been imprisoned exactly. Instead, she found herself in a place beyond comprehension, a vast chamber filled with floating constructs resembling fragments of shattered glass. These pieces pulsed faintly, emitting harmonious tones that resonated deep within her chest. It was there she realized the sphere wasn't just a tool, it was alive, sentient, and far older than anyone could imagine. They called it the Nexus. Elena explained, her hands trembling slightly as she traced invisible patterns on the tabletop. It wasn't created by the Valeth, it predates them. They guard it because they believe it holds the key to understanding all life in the universe, but they fear it too. Its power is uncontrollable. Cale leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "So what does this have to do with you? Why did they keep you?" Elena hesitated, her expression darkening. "Because I activated it. When the council member took it from me, my touch triggered something, a connection. The Nexus saw me as part of its purpose, and the Valeth, they wanted to know why." What followed was 6 years of experimentation, observation, and isolation. The Valeth studied Elena relentlessly. subjecting her to tests designed to unlock the secrets of humanity's compatibility with the Nexus. At first, she resisted, refusing to cooperate, but over time desperation set in. She learned fragments of their language, piecing together bits of information about the Nexus and its origins. Slowly, painfully, she gained insight into the Valeth mindset, a collective consciousness driven not by malice, but by an insatiable need for control. They see us as chaotic, Elena said bitterly. Unpredictable, dangerous, but also unique. We adapt. We survive. We create solutions where none seem possible. She paused, looking directly at Kale. That's why I'm here. Because they can't solve the problem alone anymore. What problem? Commander Rourke demanded, his patience wearing thin. Elena exhaled sharply, as if steeling herself for the hardest part of her explanation. The Nexus isn't stable. Whatever connection I forged with it 6 years ago disrupted its equilibrium. Now it's unraveling slowly, rewriting reality itself. If it collapses completely, it won't just destroy Lyra 3, it'll tear apart entire star systems, including Earth. A stunned silence fell over the room. The weight of her words sank in like a stone dropped into still water. Humanity's survival depended on fixing something they barely understood, guarded by beings who viewed them as little more than pests. You want our help? Kale asked finally, his voice laced with skepticism. After everything? After leaving us to rot out here while you played scientist with the Valeth? Elena flinched but didn't look away. I didn't leave willingly, Kale. I fought every day to stay alive, to find a way back. But I couldn't escape until... She trailed off, glancing toward the horizon where the Valeth city loomed like a jagged mountain range. Until they let me go. Because they're scared. Scared of what's coming. Scared of losing control. Commander Rourke crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. And what makes you think we can fix this mess? We're talking about alien technology centuries ahead of ours, hell, millennia. That's where you're wrong, Elena replied, a spark of defiance igniting in her eyes. Humanity has always thrived, not because we're stronger or smarter, but because we're adaptable, creative, empathetic. Those traits are written into our DNA, and right now, those traits might be the only thing standing between existence and annihilation. Her impassioned plea struck a chord. Despite the anger and mistrust simmering among the group, a flicker of hope ignited. Maybe, just maybe, humanity's greatest strengths could shine brightest in their darkest hour, but convincing others wouldn't be easy. News of Elena's return spread quickly across the colony, sparking heated debates. Some believed her story. Others dismissed it as paranoia or manipulation. Tensions rose as factions formed, those willing to risk everything to save the galaxy and those determined to protect what little remained of their fragile home amid the chaos. Kale wrestled with his own doubts. Could he trust Elena again? Was risking the lives of everyone in the colony worth chasing a solution to a problem they barely understood? As he stared at the stars above, one thought lingered in his mind. If humanity failed, no one else would rise to take their place, and somewhere, deep within the crystalline spires of the Valeth capital, the Nexus pulsed faintly, a silent countdown, ticking toward catastrophe. The days that followed Elena's return were a blur of chaos and division. The colony, already stretched thin by dwindling resources and mounting tensions, now faced an existential dilemma. Should they risk everything to help stabilize the Nexus, a task even the advanced Valeth couldn't accomplish, or focus on their own survival in the face of impending disaster? The debate raged across every corner of the settlement, from cramped living quarters to hastily organized town hall meetings. Elena tried tirelessly to rally support, explaining the stakes with growing urgency. She described the Nexus as a cosmic keystone holding together the fabric of reality itself. If it collapsed, entire star systems would unravel like threads pulled from a tapestry. Earth, Proxima Centauri b, and countless other worlds would be erased, not destroyed in fiery explosions, but simply wiped from existence as if they had never been. But her warnings fell on skeptical ears. Many colonists viewed her reappearance with suspicion, believing she had abandoned them willingly 6 years ago. Others saw her plea for help as reckless idealism and attempt to redeem herself at the expense of everyone else. Even those who believed her story struggled to see how humanity could possibly succeed where the mighty Valeth had failed. Cale Armitage found himself caught in the middle of it all. As one of the colony's leaders, his decisions carried weight, yet he remained torn. On one hand, Elima's arguments resonated deeply. Her descriptions of the Nexus's instability matched strange phenomena the colonists had noticed over the past year: glitches in communication systems, unexplained shifts in gravity, and eerie distortions in the night sky. These signs hinted that something far larger than themselves was unraveling. On the other hand, trusting Elena again felt like stepping into quicksand. Memories of her disappearance still lingered painfully fresh. Had she truly been forced into captivity, or had she chosen to align herself with the Valeth? And even if her intentions were genuine now, what guarantee did they have that helping her wouldn't lead to their destruction? Commander Elias Rourke voiced these doubts loudly during strategy sessions. "We're talking about risking lives, and not just ours," he argued, slamming his fist onto the table. "Every man, woman, and child here depends on us making smart choices, not throwing ourselves into some intergalactic suicide mission based on half-baked theories." Despite the resistance, a small group began rallying around Elena. They called themselves the Nexus Initiative, a coalition of engineers, scientists, and visionaries who believed humanity's adaptability gave them a fighting chance. Among them was Dr. Priya Malik, a soft-spoken astrophysicist known for her innovative problem-solving skills. Though initially wary of Elena, Priya became fascinated by the technical challenges posed by the Nexus. "It's not just about fixing it," Priya explained during one late-night brainstorming session. "It's about understanding its nature. This isn't alien tech in the traditional sense. It's alive, sentient, maybe even aware. We need to approach it less like mechanics and more like diplomats." Her words sparked inspiration among the group. Slowly, plans began taking shape. Using salvaged materials and repurposed equipment, they designed tools capable of interfacing with the Nexus's energy signatures. They theorized that human creativity combined with empathy might bridge the gap between species where brute force or logic alone had fallen short. Meanwhile, outside the confines of the colony, the Valeth grew increasingly agitated. Their crystalline forms pulsed erratically, shifting through violent hues of red and black. Observers reported unusual activity near their capital city, massive structures rising overnight, glowing brighter than ever before. It seemed clear that they too were preparing for something, but whether it was a solution or a desperate last stand remained unclear. As tensions escalated both within the colony and beyond, Cale made a decision. He agreed to let the Nexus Initiative proceed, but under strict conditions. Every step would require careful oversight, and no action could jeopardize the safety of the colony. More importantly, Elena would need to earn back their trust fully. To test her sincerity, Cale issued a challenge. "If you really believe we can fix this, prove it. Show us something tangible." "Something only you could know." Elena hesitated, then nodded. She led a small team including Cale, Priya, and a handful of volunteers to the edge of restricted Valeth territory. There, hidden beneath layers of metallic rock, lay remnants of the ancient artifact that had started it all, fragments of the Nexus sphere. Though shattered and inert, these pieces retained faint traces of the same pulsating glow that had once captivated humanity's imagination. Using portable scanners, Priya confirmed that the fragments emitted residual energy patterns matching those described by Elena, but there was more. As Elena touched one fragment, her skin shimmered faintly, mirroring its glow. The connection wasn't just theoretical, it was physical, biological. "This proves nothing," Cale muttered, though doubt flickered in his eyes. "It proves enough," Elena replied firmly. "I'm linked to the Nexus. That's why I'm here. That's why I came back." Word of the discovery spread quickly, silencing many skeptics. For the first time, people began to see Elena not as a deserter, but as a reluctant messenger bearing an impossible burden. Hope stirred anew, fragile but undeniable, yet challenges loomed larger than ever. The Nexus Initiative's progress attracted unwanted attention, not just from the Valeth but from factions within the colony itself. Some extremists, convinced that helping the Nexus meant betraying humanity's interests, sabotaged equipment and spread fear-mongering rumors. Others hoarded supplies, refusing to share resources with the project. Amid the turmoil, Kale wrestled with guilt and responsibility. He had spent years leading the colony through hardship, always prioritizing practicality over idealism. Now, faced with a crisis that defied logic, he questioned whether his cautious approach had stifled opportunities for greatness. Could humanity rise to meet this moment, or would they falter under the weight of their own fears? One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the colony, Kale stood beside Elena atop a ridge overlooking the settlement. Below, lights flickered weakly against the encroaching darkness, a fragile beacon of life in an unforgiving universe. "You asked me to trust you," Kale said quietly, breaking the silence. "But trust works both ways. If we do this, if we risk everything, you'd better make sure it's worth it." Elena turned to him, her expression resolute yet tinged with sorrow. "I can't promise success, Kale. No one can. But I can promise this. Humanity has always survived because we refuse to give up, because we find strength in each other when all else fails. If we don't try, then everything we've built, all our struggles, sacrifices, and dreams, it'll vanish like smoke." Her words hung heavy in the air, echoing against the vastness of the cosmos. For the first time, Kale allowed himself to believe not in guarantees but in possibilities. In the untapped potential of a species defined not by its limitations but by its resilience, and somewhere, deep within the heart of the Valeth capital, the Nexus pulsed faintly, a silent witness to humanity's determination. Its light wavered. Unstable but defiant, mirroring the spark of hope rekindled among the stars, the Nexus Initiative worked tirelessly, their efforts fueled by a mix of desperation and renewed hope. The colony's resources were stretched thin, but the team managed to cobble together an array of makeshift tools and devices designed to interface with the Nexus fragments. Dr. Priya Malik became the linchpin of the operation, her calm demeanor masking the relentless drive within her. She spent hours poring over data, recalibrating equipment, and theorizing how humanity's unique traits might stabilize the chaotic energy emanating from the Nexus. Elena remained at the center of it all, her presence both inspiring and polarizing. While some colonists began to see her as a symbol of redemption, others still eyed her with suspicion. Her connection to the Nexus was undeniable. Every time she touched one of the fragments, faint pulses of light would ripple across its surface, syncing momentarily with her own heartbeat. Yet this mysterious bond only deepened the divide among the settlers. Was she truly human anymore? Or had her 6 years with the Valeth altered her in ways no one could understand? Kale Armitage wrestled with these questions daily. As leader of the colony, he bore the weight of every decision, balancing pragmatism against possibility. He watched Elena closely, searching for signs of betrayal or ulterior motives. But what he saw instead was exhaustion, a woman carrying the burden of 2 species on her shoulders. Despite his lingering doubts, Kale found himself drawn into her orbit. Compelled by a shared sense of responsibility, one evening as the team analyzed readings from the latest experiment, something unexpected happened. A fragment of the Nexus began emitting a low hum, growing louder and more resonant with each passing second. The sound filled the room, vibrating through walls and bones alike. Everyone froze, unsure whether this was progress or disaster. "Step back!" Commander Rourke barked, reaching for his sidearm out of instinct. But before anyone could react, the fragment levitated off the table, spinning slowly as if caught in an invisible current. Light spilled from its core, casting eerie shadows across the lab. Elena stepped forward without hesitation, her hands raised as though greeting an old friend. "It's responding," she whispered, awe breaking through her usual composure. "It recognizes us." Priya hurriedly adjusted sensors, capturing every detail of the phenomenon. "This is unprecedented," she murmured, her voice trembling with excitement. "The Nexus isn't just reacting, it's communicating." The moment marked a turning point. For the first time, the Nexus initiative had tangible proof that humanity's efforts weren't futile. The artifact's behavior suggested it viewed humans not as threats but as potential allies. This revelation ignited a wave of cautious optimism throughout the colony. Even skeptics who had dismissed Elena's warnings began to reconsider their stance, but the breakthrough came at a cost. The Valith, ever vigilant, detected the surge of activity emanating from the human settlement. Within hours, a delegation arrived, a towering trio of crystalline beings led by the same Indigo Council member who had taken Elena years ago. Their arrival sent shockwaves through the colony. Reigniting fears of retaliation, Kale met them outside the perimeter fence, flanked by armed guards. His heart pounded as he stared up at the alien figures, their translucent forms shimmering with ominous hues of crimson and gold. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice steady despite the knot of dread tightening in his chest. The council member spoke, his voice resonating like rolling thunder. "You interfere where you are unwelcome. Cease your experiments immediately." Kale clenched his fists, resisting the urge to lash out. "We're trying to fix what's broken. If we don't act, everything will be lost, including your world." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the council member tilted his head slightly, his glowing form shifting to a softer shade of violet. "You speak boldly for creatures so fragile." Yet, he paused, glancing toward Elena, who stood quietly behind Kale. "Your actions intrigue us. Perhaps there is truth in your words." It was a small concession but monumental nonetheless. The Valith had never acknowledged humanity's potential before. This subtle shift signaled a crack in their rigid worldview, a flicker of curiosity about the species they had long dismissed as insignificant. Back inside the lab, the team debated their next move. Elena argued that they needed to push further, using the Nexus's response as leverage to gain access to the main artifact housed in the Valith capital. "If we can reach the heart of the Nexus, we might stand a chance of stabilizing it," she insisted. "But we'll need their cooperation," Commander Rourke balked at the idea. "You're asking us to walk straight into their stronghold? That's suicide. It's our only shot," Elena countered. "They're watching us now. If we hesitate, they'll see it as weakness." After much deliberation, Kale made the call. Against overwhelming odds, the Nexus Initiative prepared to venture into the heart of the Valith domain. It was a gamble, one that could either save countless lives or doom them all. As they packed supplies and fine-tuned their equipment, Kale pulled Elena aside. "This is it," he said, his tone serious yet tinged with resolve. "No more secrets. No more half-truths. If we fail, it's on both of us." Elena nodded, meeting his gaze with unflinching determination. "I know, and I'm ready." The journey to the Valith capital was fraught with tension. Every step felt like walking into the unknown, the air thick with anticipation and fear. When they finally reached the crystalline spires, the sight took their breath away. The city pulsed with life, its structures glowing brighter than ever before. At its center loomed the Nexus, a massive sphere suspended above a platform of shimmering glass, radiating waves of chaotic energy. As the humans approached, the Valith gathered around them, forming a silent ring of observers. Their expressions were unreadable, their forms shifting through a kaleidoscope of colors. For a moment, doubt crept into Kale's mind. Could they really pull this off? Then Elena stepped forward, placing herself directly beneath the Nexus. She closed her eyes, extending her hands toward the artifact. A soft glow enveloped her, bridging the gap between human and alien technology. The Nexus responded, its erratic pulses steadying slightly. In that instant, something remarkable happened. The Valith began to murmur amongst themselves, their voices low and reverent. They had always seen humanity as chaotic, unpredictable, but now, witnessing Elena's connection to the Nexus, they glimpsed something else entirely. Strength born not from power, but from unity. The game-changing moment had arrived. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were proving their worth in a galaxy that had long underestimated them. The air in the Valith capital was electric, charged with anticipation and unease. The Nexus loomed above Elena like a storm cloud on the verge of breaking, its chaotic energy pulsing erratically despite her efforts to stabilize it. Around her, the crystalline forms of the Valith shimmered with an array of shifting colors and certainty, curiosity, and something that might have been awe. For the first time in 6 years, Elena felt the weight of their attention not as judgment but as expectation. Kale stood nearby, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He wanted to step forward to shield Elena from whatever dangers lay ahead, but he knew this was her moment, a moment humanity had earned through sacrifice, ingenuity, and sheer willpower. Behind him, the rest of the Nexus Initiative team worked, frantically monitoring readings and adjusting equipment to support Elena's connection with the artifact. Priya called out updates, her voice steady despite the tension crackling in the air. "It's responding," she said, glancing at the portable monitor strapped to her wrist. "But the fluctuations are still too unstable. We need more time." Time, however, was a luxury they didn't have. The distortions in reality were worsening. The sky beyond the crystalline spires flickered unnaturally, stars blinking out one by one as if erased from existence. Even the ground beneath their feet vibrated, faintly as though the fabric of space itself was unraveling. Each passing second brought them closer to catastrophe. Elena focused all her energy on maintaining the fragile link between herself and the Nexus. Her body trembled with the effort, sweat beading on her forehead as waves of alien energy coursed through her. She could feel it not just as a foreign force, but as a living entity, ancient and vast, struggling to maintain its own coherence. It wasn't angry or malicious. It was scared, confused, and desperate for balance. "We're running out of options," Kale muttered under his breath, turning to Commander Rourke. "If we don't stabilize it soon, we'll lose everything." Rourke nodded grimly, his usual skepticism replaced by grim determination. "Then we make sure she doesn't fail." Nearby, a group of colonists who had volunteered for the mission formed a protective perimeter around Elena and the Nexus. Armed with improvised weapons crafted from mining tools and salvage tech, they prepared to defend her against any threat, even if it came from the Valith themselves. Despite their fears, there was no hesitation in their stance. They understood what was at stake, not just their lives, but the survival of humanity and countless other species across the galaxy. As the moments stretched on, the situation grew increasingly precarious. The Nexus's glow intensified, bathing the entire platform in blinding light. Its hum grew louder, resonating deep within everyone's bones. Some of the Valith began to retreat, their forms flickering anxiously as they realized the artifact was slipping further out of control. Others remained, watching intently as Elena fought to hold the line. Then, without warning, the Nexus emitted a deafening pulse of energy that sent shockwaves rippling outward. Everyone stumbled, shielding their eyes as the light flared brighter than ever before. When the glare finally dimmed, Elena collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. The connection had broken. "No!" Priya shouted, rushing to Elena's side. "We can't stop now!" Elena shook her head weakly, clutching her chest. I can't keep going. It's too much." Kale knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "Firmly, you have to. There's no one else who can do this." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "What if I'm not enough?" "You are," he replied, his voice fierce yet tender. "You've always been enough. Trust me." For a moment, silence fell over the group. Then, unexpectedly, one of the Valith stepped forward, the Indigo Council member who had once dismissed humanity as insignificant. His form pulsed softly, radiating a calm blue hue. Slowly, deliberately, he extended a claw-like hand toward Elena. "Your kind is strange," he rumbled, his voice echoing like distant thunder. "Chaotic, unpredictable, but also resilient. Perhaps you are capable of what we cannot achieve alone." Elena hesitated, then reached out, placing her hand in his. A surge of energy passed between them, bridging the gap between species. The Nexus responded instantly, its chaotic pulses steadying slightly as though acknowledging the shared effort. Encouraged by this development, others began stepping forward, not just humans but Valeth as well. One by one, they joined hands, forming a circle around the artifact. Each individual contributed what they could: strength, knowledge, empathy, hope. Together, they created a network of connections, each thread reinforcing the next. Priya monitored the readings closely, her eyes widening as she saw the data stabilize. "It's working," she whispered, barely able to believe it. "The Nexus is responding to our combined input." The scene was surreal, a coalition of beings so different yet united by a common purpose. Humanity's adaptability, creativity, and heart intertwined seamlessly with the Valeth's precision and discipline. For the first time, both species saw each other not as adversaries but as partners. Still, the battle wasn't over. The Nexus's instability remained perilously close to collapse, and the strain on those maintaining the connection was immense. Elena and the others gritted their teeth, pushing past exhaustion and pain. Every second felt like an eternity, every heartbeat a reminder of how much hung in the balance. As the Nexus's glow began to soften, taking on a warm, steady hue, Kale glanced around the circle. He saw fear, determination, and unity reflected in every face. In that moment, he understood what made humanity truly remarkable. Not their technology or strength, but their ability to rise above themselves when it mattered most. And somewhere deep within the Nexus, a spark of recognition ignited. It had always sought harmony, balance, connection. Now, surrounded by beings willing to give everything for its survival, it began to heal, but the final act of brilliance and sacrifice was yet to come. The Nexus pulsed steadily now. It's chaotic. Energy tempered by the combined efforts of humans and Valeth. Yet the battle was far from over. Though the artifact's instability had lessened, it remained dangerously close to collapse. Each passing moment tested the limits of those maintaining the connection, their bodies trembling under the strain. Sweat dripped from foreheads, muscles quivered with exhaustion, and breaths came in ragged gasps. But no one let go, not Elena, not Kale. Not even the stoic Valeth who had once viewed humanity as unworthy. Elena stood at the center of the circle, her hands extended toward the Nexus. Her body glowed faintly, a soft golden light that seemed to emanate from within her very core. It was as if the Nexus recognized her, the human who had first bridged the gap between species and entrusted her with its survival. She could feel it all, the weight of billions of lives across the galaxy, the fragile threads of reality unraveling around them, and the collective strength of everyone standing beside her. But there was a problem. Despite their best efforts, the Nexus's fluctuations were still too erratic. Its energy surged unpredictably, threatening to overwhelm the delicate balance they had fought so hard to establish. Priya called out warnings from her position near the monitors, her voice tight with urgency. "It's stabilizing, but not enough. If we don't anchor it completely, it'll destabilize again." Kale turned to her sharply. "What do you mean, anchor? How?" Priya hesitated, her eyes darting nervously between the Nexus and the group. "We need someone to act as a conduit. Someone willing to channel the full force of the Nexus's energy through themselves. It might stabilize it permanently, but it's incredibly dangerous." A heavy silence fell over the group. Everyone understood what she was saying. This wasn't just about holding the line anymore. It was about making an ultimate sacrifice. Whoever volunteered would risk everything, possibly even their life, to save the galaxy. Elena didn't hesitate. "I'll do it," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. She stepped forward, breaking free of the circle and approaching the Nexus directly. "No," Kale shouted, grabbing her arm. "You've already done more than anyone could ask. Let someone else take this risk." Elena shook her head, her expression resolute. "This is why I'm here, Kale, why I came back. The Nexus chose me for this. I can feel it. Trust me." Her words carried a quiet certainty that silenced any argument. Kale opened his mouth to protest further, but he saw the determination in her eyes and knew there was no changing her mind. Reluctantly, he released her arm. Stepping back with clenched fist. As Elena approached the nexus, the crystalline sphere began to hum louder, responding to her presence. Light spilled from its surface, enveloping her in a radiant glow. She closed her eyes, reaching out with both hands until they touched the artifact. Instantly, a surge of energy coursed through her, lifting her off the ground and suspending her in midair. Her body arched backward as waves of alien power flowed into her, lighting up every vein and nerve ending. Around her, the others watched in awe and terror. The nexus pulsed brighter and brighter, its erratic fluctuations smoothing out into a steady rhythm. The distortions in the sky above began to fade, stars reappearing one by one as reality repaired itself. It was working, but at a cost, Elena screamed, her voice echoing through the chamber as the sheer force of the Nexus's energy threatened to consume her. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the golden light radiating from her skin. She clung to consciousness with every ounce of willpower she possessed, focusing on the faces of those below her: Kale, Priya, the colonist, the Valith. Their unity gave her strength, reminding her why she had to endure. Then something extraordinary happened. As Elena channeled the Nexus's energy, the artifact began to resonate with emotions rather than logic. Humanity's empathy, creativity, and resilience flooded into its ancient systems, rewiring them in ways no one could have anticipated. The Nexus wasn't just being stabilized, it was evolving, adapting to incorporate the unique qualities of the beings it now recognized as partners. The Indigo Council member stepped forward, his crystalline form glowing softly. For the first time, his expression softened, revealing a hint of admiration. "You're kind. You're more than we thought," he murmured, his voice low but clear. "Perhaps chaos is not weakness after all." His words echoed through the chamber, reaching every ear. The Valith, once dismissive of humanity's potential, now saw them in a new light. They witnessed firsthand the courage, selflessness, and ingenuity that defined these fragile creatures. And they realized that survival wasn't just about control, it was about connection. Finally, with a deafening pulse of light, the Nexus stabilized completely. Its glow dimmed to a warm, steady shimmer, vibrating gently like a heartbeat. Elena fell back to the ground, collapsing into Kale's arms as the energy dissipated. Her body was limp, her breathing shallow but alive. For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly, cheers erupted from humans and Valith alike. The impossible had been achieved. Reality itself had been saved. But as Kale cradled Elena, tears streaming down his face, he whispered the question everyone was thinking: at what cost? Above them, the Nexus pulsed softly, its light reflecting in the eyes of every being present. It was no longer just an artifact, it was a symbol of unity, a testament to what could be accomplished when fear gave way to trust, and division gave way to collaboration. And somewhere deep within the Nexus, a spark of gratitude ignited, forever changed by the hearts and minds of those who had dared to believe. The aftermath of the Nexus's stabilization was a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and quiet awe. The once chaotic artifact now pulsed steadily above its platform in the Valith capital, casting a warm, golden light that seemed to soothe even the most frayed nerves. Its presence no longer felt alien or threatening, it radiated harmony as though it had finally found peace alongside those who had fought so hard to save it. For humanity and the Valith alike, the moment marked a turning point, not just in their survival, but in how they saw themselves and each other. Elena lay unconscious in the makeshift medical bay set up within the Valith city. Her body bore the physical toll of channeling the Nexus's immense energy, but her vitals remained stable, thanks to Priya's quick thinking and the unexpected assistance of the Valith healers. Their crystalline forms shimmered softly as they worked, their movements precise yet gentle. It was a stark contrast to the cold indifference humanity had faced when they first arrived on Lyra 3. Something fundamental had shifted, not just in the Nexus but in the hearts of both species. Kale sat by Elena's side, refusing to leave until she woke. His hands clasped hers tightly, his knuckles white with tension. He replayed the events over and over in his mind the way she had stepped forward without hesitation, the way her body had glowed like a beacon of hope amidst chaos. She had risked everything for him, and he couldn't shake the weight of her sacrifice. "You're stronger than anyone I've ever known," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Don't make me lose you again." When Elena finally stirred, her eyes fluttered open slowly, adjusting to the soft glow of the room. Cale leaned closer, his voice trembling with emotion. "Hey," he said softly. "Welcome back." A faint smile crossed her lips, weak but genuine. "Did we do it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Cale nodded, squeezing her hand. "Yeah, we did. You saved everyone." Tears welled up in her eyes, not from pain but from gratitude. "Not just me," she replied hoarsely. "All of us, together." Outside, the colony buzzed with renewed energy. The distortions in reality had vanished entirely, leaving behind clear skies and steady ground. Supplies that had been scarce began flowing more freely as the Valeth extended an olive branch, offering resources and technology to aid humanity's recovery. It wasn't charity, it was acknowledgement. They had seen what humans were capable of under impossible circumstances and recognized the value of collaboration over domination. In the days that followed, the bond between the two species deepened. Joint teams of humans and Valeth worked side by side, studying the Nexus and learning from its newfound stability. What had once been a source of fear was now a symbol of unity, a cosmic keystone holding together not just reality, but trust. The Nexus Initiative became a permanent alliance, dedicated to ensuring that such a crisis would never happen again. Commander Rourke, who had always been skeptical of grand gestures, stood atop a ridge overlooking the colony one evening. Beside him, Dr. Priya Malik gazed at the horizon, where the sun dipped below jagged peaks. "Never thought I'd see the day," Rourke admitted gruffly, his usual stern demeanor softened by wonder. "Us working with them? Guess miracles do exist after all." Priya smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "It's not a miracle. It's humanity. We adapt, we endure, and sometimes we surprise even ourselves." As the weeks turned into months, life on Lyra 3 began to flourish in ways no one had imagined. The colonists rebuilt their settlement with new materials and techniques shared by the Valeth, creating structures that blended human ingenuity with alien elegance. Children played among the crystalline spires, laughing without fear, while adults forged friendships across species lines. Humanity's foothold among the stars had transformed from fragile survival into something far greater, a legacy of cooperation and resilience. One evening, Cale and Elena stood together beneath the glowing Nexus, watching as its light danced across the night sky. The air was cool and crisp, filled with the hum of distant machinery and the soft murmur of voices human and Valeth alike. They had come so far since the days of mistrust and conflict, and yet the journey ahead promised even more challenges. "Do you think we'll ever truly understand it?" Elena asked, tilting her head toward the Nexus. "Really understand?" Cale shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "Probably not, but maybe that's okay. Some things are meant to be mysteries. All we can do is keep trying to learn, to grow, to connect." Elena nodded, leaning into him as they gazed upward. The Nexus pulsed gently, its rhythm steady and reassuring. In that moment, it felt less like an artifact and more like a heartbeat, a reminder that even in the vastness of the universe, connection mattered most. Far beyond Lyra 3, news of humanity's triumph spread across the galaxy. Other species took notice not just of the feat itself, but of the values that had driven it. Courage, empathy, unity, these traits defined humanity, setting them apart in a cosmos often ruled by power and control. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly hold trials, one truth shone brightly. Humanity didn't belong among the stars because they were perfect. They belonged because they refused to give up even when the odds seemed insurmountable. As the Nexus continued to pulse softly above the Valeth capital, its light reached farther than anyone could have imagined. It illuminated not just the darkness of space, but the boundless potential of a species determined to rise above itself. And in that glow, humanity found its place not as conquerors, But as builders of bridges, creators of hope, and guardians of the future, for the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt a little less lonely, and somewhere, deep within the nexus, a spark of gratitude lingered, a silent echo of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to shine brightest when the odds were darkest.